So you were kind of putting everything back on the line.
Yeah, so it's a risk. Again, and people were like, why the hell are you risking your money again?
Yeah.
But for us, we just knew in our gut that this was going to be something.
This is Nicola Gunby, co-founder of CLIQ, the social networking platform helping like-minded people connect in real life. When you think about social networks, you think about Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it might be. Where do you start with kind of building a new social network?
For us, we're not taking anything away from those platforms. We want to carve a new road of social media, and people are always going to still use TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, but we want CLIQ to be the place where you go to meet people.
Just to talk about the red flags about women's safety when you're going for a fundraising round.
As a female founder raising, you do have to be really cautious of who you're going out and meeting. Anyone can say on their LinkedIn they're an investor. There's no due diligence. They can have investor in their bio and they can pretend that they're an investor, and that's very easy to do.
You mentioned that you'd had a couple of instances where people were inappropriate. What should they watch out for?
Yeah, so
Nicola, thank you for coming down to Health Stack. Tell me about CLIQ, and also tell me why we need another social networking platform.
Oh, good question. So I'm the founder of an app called CLIQ, and we're basically a social networking and community app. So we're all about connecting like-minded people through interest-based communities and through in-person events. As a team, really passionate about how do we help people get out from behind the phone? How do we help people to meet new people? The idea came from moving to London myself, spent a bit of time in Australia before that, moved around, and I've always wanted to meet new people, but really struggled to meet like-minded people. You go to all these like female founder networking events and you walk away from that potentially not having any connections. And I just realized there was no apps out there that were focused on community. All the apps out there keep us scrolling, keep us addicted, like that social media side of things, but no one's actively meeting on them anymore. If you think about it, when was the last time you reached out to someone on Instagram or TikTok and was like, hey, I want to be your friend, do you want to go for coffee? Like, it feels so weird. I think the only platform that's probably done well with that is LinkedIn, but very more professional. If you want to meet people in a social setting, you've got Facebook groups, which are super outdated, really spammy. You've got your dating app style friendship apps, which is swiping through people, judging how they look, and then going on a one-on-one date with them. There's nothing for community. Yeah. So instead of social networking, yes, we are a social networking platform, but we're focused solely on community and solely on getting people out from behind that device.
Yeah, amazing. And I think so I've not tried the sort of, I know you had Bumble BFF, was kind of like trying to do a similar type of thing, I guess. But it just seems like it doesn't seem natural. It seems so odd that you would go and meet somebody that you've never met before, but you don't really know who they are. And like you say, like, I guess maybe you haven't been on Tinder, you've been with your partner a long time, but like, if you don't like that person or you don't get along together, you can't just cut it short in the same way that you can with a date. It's kind of like a social weirdness around it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, the same thing can't work for friends as it can for dating. And I think those apps, there's a lot of them out there and they've really tried to cut through the noise. And there's so many people on these apps looking for connection, but they're not actually finding that connection. And also it feels a little bit cringe. Yeah. If you met someone that's like, oh, I met my best friend on this app called like Bumble BFF, you think, oh, okay. Whereas for CLIQ, it's like, we want to make it cool to be on CLIQ. It's like you come onto CLIQ, no matter who you are, what you do, what you're interested in, and you find a community and you go along to that event and you meet like-minded people, and then anyone can be on CLIQ.
So I know this isn't your first business venture. I know you had a company called MyRev first. So tell me a little bit about how you got into business, how you started your first company and how that went.
Yeah, so no business experience, no tech experience. I suppose it started when I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Quit university, hated it. Again, didn't really find people that I connected with, so ended up moving back home. Jason, my partner, so we've been together since secondary school, so a very long time. Yeah, it's a really long time. He went off to university, and deep down inside me, I was like, I need to get out of this town that we live in. I need to go explore the world. Never really been like outside of Europe or anything. So convinced him, let's book a one-way flight to Southeast Asia. Let's go to Thailand and like live our backpacking dreams. Parents were like, what the hell are you doing? Absolutely no way, but still went anyway. And whilst we were out there, we were supposed to be there for 3 months. That was kind of the plan. We booked a one-way flight. Ended up going to Australia, and we were actually out of the UK for 3 years. Wow. Yeah, which is crazy. So we had to build our own life again. So we moved to Melbourne, got a flat, got jobs, all these really exciting things, that taste of independence. And I think that completely changed my life when I look back. I was very shy before that, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, probably didn't think I'd do really anything exciting. I had dreams, so I really wanted to be a makeup artist. I've always been very creative, less so academic, which is why university didn't suit me. I was like, I don't want to sit and study for another 3 years when I can be out making money. So yeah, I wanted to pursue this makeup artistry career, and I was like, perfect time, move to Melbourne, here for 2 years, like get all my stuff shipped over, like let's go for it. And soon realized that to build a client base in a city where you don't know anyone is very difficult. And I came home to Jason one day and I was like, I'm getting these amazing jobs. I'm getting the Formula One, I had Melbourne Fashion Week, I got a few TV shows, but I couldn't get on the weekend, girls going out, bridal makeup, parties, all of that kind of stuff, because it's such a word of mouth industry. And you normally go to a beauty professional because your friend's been to them or your mum or someone. And I was like, I'm just not getting the work that I want to get. Like, I'm not fully booked. How do I get fully booked? Jason was like, there must be some websites out there, must be some platforms. Sat down, had a look, and there was nothing. Everything was so salon heavy and nothing was for freelancers. And then basically just sat down together and was like, look, there's nothing out there. Why don't we go and try something? I think we went away because we both knew we wanted to, it sounds so cliche, but like find ourselves. Very quickly understood that we didn't want to work for someone else. Like we're working in these jobs, we're working for other people, and we just felt like we didn't have the freedom. We always wanted to do something maybe together, but we weren't sure if we'd work well together. So for us, that was like a little bit of a test. So some of the money that we had saved to travel back home were like, let's buy a MacBook, let's build a website. Knew we were coming back to nothing basically and having to start going because our visas ran out. So 3 years, we knew that would be it for us. And then we're back in our hometown, back living with our parents, back to square one, whilst all our friends are like buying houses, buying nice cars. So we wanted to come back with something. And for us, that was like our little test project, see if we'd work well together.
That's a very different Southeast Asia trip to a lot of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, exactly. But we didn't know it was going to pan out like that. It's so weird. Like on the first night in Thailand, Jason said to me, he was like, I've just got this like vision that we're going to be away for a really long time and we're going to come back with a business. And like 21-year-old me was like, what are you on about? Like, why would we come back with a business? We don't have any business experience. I've quit university. Don't know what I want to do with my life. And he was like, I've just got this weird feeling. Maybe it's psychic. I don't know. Maybe we should go into psychic things. But yeah, came back with a business, which is so crazy. And yeah, came back to the UK, moved back with the parents, was like, right, give ourselves 6 months, give ourselves a year to really make this work. And I think that pressure was what really made it work in the beginning. Then after that, COVID hit, which was great for the business because in hindsight, people went self-employed after COVID, salons shut down. We wanted to support local freelancers and all of the other platforms were salon heavy, so they weren't doing as well. So we were named one of the fastest growing beauty marketplaces straight after COVID.
That's amazing. So so just to go back slightly, what year was this you went to Southeast Asia, roughly?
Oh, God, you're testing me now. I think it was 2018.
Okay. So
I
that
came
was,
back 2021.
so I guess kind of like that was a period in time, right, where I think if you look at the world now, the sort of going to be a founder and starting a business and all of that, it's a bit more fashionable than it was then. So would you say that you and Jason were quite sort of entrepreneurially minded before you got to that point? Did you kind of have that within you, do you think? Or is that something that kind of developed as you were away?
I think definitely developed. I think my first taste of being an entrepreneur was being a makeup artist because you are a freelancer, got to get your own work, do your accounts, marketing, all of that kind of stuff. And you don't have anyone like telling you what to do. And then on the side, I was working in store as a makeup artist. And I could tell like the way I worked when I was in store, set hours, being told what to do, X rate for whatever it was, and then being able to go off and do my own thing. I was like, I much prefer going and doing my own thing. And I think for Jason as well, he's always been, I'd say more entrepreneurial than me. But I think because we had those 3 years where it was literally just us and a few friends in a city, you kind of mold each other. And I do believe in relationships, especially when you get together so young, you either grow together or you grow apart. And it's so easy to grow apart because you think about it, you get together when you're like 16, 17.
Well, especially when you're traveling together, that you see so many couples that go together and then end up not coming back together.
Like babies, really. Like you don't know much about the rest of the world, about life and about who you even are as a person. To then be able to grow with that person and then start a business felt like a natural progression because we spent 3 years together, 24 hours a day, mostly together anyway. So building a business didn't really seem outside of the norm.
One of the things that I've heard you say before, and I hear so many founders say, is just get started. And you obviously came back from your day at work, etc., and you had this idea to start this business. And obviously what it turned into was a really successful tech business, one of the fastest growing health businesses. what does just start mean? Like, because I think a lot of people hear that and they're like, okay, great, just start, but just start with what? Like, what's the first step? How do I start to design a website? How do I start to get things moving in any direction?
Yeah, I do think now we live in a world where it's a lot easier. So like you can go and build an app with AI and a website with AI and all of these things. Obviously, you need to have the idea behind you and the creativity to do it. But when we started our first business, that did not even exist. So we were like listening to every podcast, watching every YouTube, reading every book about business that we can. And I think now we're living in a world where that's so easily accessible. So you can do it a lot easier. I think when you think about just starting, you don't have to go and quit your job tomorrow and put all of your money and build a fully fledged app with every single feature. Like you can do things small and you can start small. Like a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh yeah, I want to quit my full-time job and start a business. I'm like, do you have a runway? And they're like, no. I'm like, don't quit your job then. Because businesses take a while to make money. Like you're not going to be making money on day one. People don't understand that. And I think building a business is really glamorized on social media. And that's one of the main reasons when we started the first business, I was like, well, people like Grace Beverly are doing it, so why can't I? But you don't understand until you're in it, the grit, the determination, how long it takes to actually build a sustainable business. So I think just start small. Like you can start with a side hustle on the side of your full-time job. If you are ready to quit your full-time job, then amazing, but you don't need to go all in and build everything tomorrow. I think also test and learn. So start small, build, if it's an app, build a few features first. Don't build everything at once because you don't know if people are going to use it. If it's a product, speak to as many founders as possible as well. I think it's really important. See what they've done in their business before, what worked and what didn't, and learn from that.
Okay, so let's dive a little bit into MyRev. So tell me, how long did that business, or how long did you have it for? I think you exited successfully. So what did that look like in that trajectory in that time period?
Yeah, so it was only 3 years, which is crazy because it was still a baby in a way. And when we had the proposition for the acquisition, it wasn't even something that we'd considered. We didn't even realize that that could be a thing. We were trying to get external investment to grow the business. We've gotten to a point where we felt like we could grow it as much as we could, and we need that injection of cash. I think with tech businesses more than product-based businesses, investment is so crucial. Like the more users you have, the more it costs, all of that type of thing. Marketing, like building a app is not cheap at all. Maybe it's a bit cheaper now if you could do it yourself. So we really need that injection of cash. And then, yeah, we got connected to the founder of Revolution Beauty, and it was just perfect timing. They'd just gone public. We're looking to invest in something a little bit different. And yeah, offered us the acquisition. And a week later, we were living in London and our life had just turned upside down in the best way possible. And then we worked internally with them for about a year and then did the full exit. So yeah, 3 years in total. Yeah. In those 3 years was just completely a sponge. Yeah. Was like, what can we learn? What makes a good founder? Also, going inside a public company, we learned so much, like what a board does, all of these different things that we didn't really know about before. So I do look back and I think that was such a learning curve for me and Jason. And that really pushed us to become the best founders that we can, ready for CLIQ. And it kind of felt like that business was a stepping stone into this one. And I loved it so much. It was definitely like my thing because I was a makeup artist. But now CLIQ, I'm so passionate about, and I feel like I've really found my purpose with it. But I don't think we could have done CLIQ as well, and probably wouldn't have had the idea for CLIQ if we didn't do the previous business.
No,
before.
Definitely. And I think there's so much that you learn, like you say, about just how a business runs and what those certain events in a business might mean. So for anybody that's watching that is going on that founder journey now, they'll be hearing about words like exits, acquisitions, public traded. They might not know what any of that stuff means. So like, talk me through just that period of time, whether it's a week or a month, and really kind of like in detail how that process unfolded about you and Jason working on this business, not really knowing maybe what the next steps are, but that you know that you need to take something, either whether it's investment or advice. Like, what was the process from that to the actual acquisition, and like, how did it all unfold? Did you just get a random email one day? Were you introduced? Like, what was the process?
Yeah, so we learned a lot ourselves, and also was living in an area where we didn't have any network. So from Nottingham, just outside Nottingham, was living back with the parents, didn't know anyone that started business, didn't know anyone that had any money or anything. So all the information we got was online. Started to build a bit of like an online network with other founders, realized how powerful LinkedIn was, and that's where I do all my outreach. I think we did like a few webinars and stuff, and like a few things where it was like, what are the next steps for your business? And for us, investment was just an option that we had on the table, and we're like, why not take it? never had any experience in raising investment, didn't know what half these things was. You'd be watching this webinar and they're like, you need to build a pitch deck. And I'm like, what the hell is a pitch deck? Like, we just didn't know. So everything we learned was just from online information and then just absolutely winging it. Like, we had probably, looking back, not that long, 3 months of the investment process. So the first process was like business plan, pitch deck, where do we want to go? It's so funny. We actually found our old pitch deck the other day on Canva. And looking back at it, I'm like, oh my God, it's so funny.
How did anybody invest into that?
Exactly. But at the time, we thought it was the best thing ever. And I think that was, 2022, 2023. So the investment landscape was very different then. Just came out of COVID. But I don't think there was much competition then. We would do probably 3-4 calls a day, and it was all from LinkedIn. So what I learned was go on LinkedIn, message every investor, message anyone that had money, message anyone that in beauty, just send them an intro message and be like, I'm building this, we'd love to chat, see what conversations we can get, see where those conversations went. If it was a no, try and get introduced to someone from them. And if it was a yes, then hopefully we'd get the investment. But it was like 3 months of no yeses and 3 months of no every single day. And Jason, I think it was one day we went for a walk and he was like, look, I just don't think I can do this anymore. Like, raising money as a founder is relentless. Like, you're letting people into your business to give you opinions on absolutely everything, opinions on yourself. And I think because we were pretty young and pretty inexperienced at business, we were only like 2 years into our business, it really hit hard. And there was days where it was just like, this is just too much. And Jason said, I can't do it anymore. And I was like, look, just give it a week. Just give it one more week. And I said something, this is a funny story. We're going to like love it when we make it, like just one more week. And we sat down on this bench and someone had freshly carved on the side of the bench, love it when we make it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll show you the photo afterwards. It's our home screens on our phones because that was just like the sign that we needed.
Yeah.
And then the next week, we got 3 offers. So people that have been chatting to you before, they wanted to invest. So they were angel investors. There was an angel syndicate that was interested. And then a couple of days later, after we saw that sign, I just randomly messaged the founder of Revolution. I was like, shoot my shot. Why not? He came back. We had a call. He was like, I really love this, but let me come back to you in a week. And we're like, okay, what's going to happen? So we're kind of holding off on saying yes to anyone else. And then had the call. And he was like, yeah, I'd love to invest personally, but I see the benefit of bringing it in-house. Like, we have all the infrastructure. You don't need to hire. You can use marketing, PR, accounts, lawyers. We've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of customers and professionals you can tap into. We've got products that your professionals can use. The infrastructure that you need, like, move down to London and we'll acquire you. And we were like, right, okay. So yeah, just said, yeah, I mean, like,
obviously a yes.
Yeah, being early 20s, living in your parents' home and someone offers you that, like, you'd be so silly to turn it down. So yeah, a week later we were in London.
Amazing. And so I think that's a really, like, there's so many things within that, I think, that are really important for people to know. Perseverance and resilience, I think, through fundraising is one of them. Like, it is a full-time job. And you just have to be capable of accepting the no's and knowing that all of those no's are moving closer to the yes that you want. And I think the second is the network effect.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned about business is that you're only as good as the people around you. You have to be around good people. Even if you are living in a part of the country that is isolated from everywhere else, find a way to get around those people. Whether it's going to networking events online, whether it's traveling to London once a week, whether it's pitching up at a coffee shop next to the office that you want to speak to somebody from, just get around with people that you need to be around to move your business forward, because they can move it forward much faster than you can. And I know that's something that you do a lot of now. So let's move a bit further into CLIQ. So you've moved down to London. You've obviously got, you're financially, I guess, set up for at least a little while. Where did the idea from CLIQ come from? Like, what's the time period in between?
It was 3 months, which is crazy because things like that happen and you're like, oh, I'm going to take a year off. Let's travel. Let's live our lives. And if you're an entrepreneur, you get bored, that you can't sit still. And for us in that time period, those 3 months, we were like, okay, let's meet as many people as possible. Kind of want to get inspired again. You don't know what you're really going to do. You're in this weird limbo period where obviously you're so grateful and so happy of what's happened, but two, you've kind of lost your identity a little bit because you go to these events and they're like, what do you do? And you're like, nothing actually. Yeah, exactly. So I was going to all of these female founder events. I didn't really have any friends in London that were female founders. My friends work in corporate roles, which is amazing and I love them, but I just wanted to find people that got it and find people that were founders, because you know what it's like, founder to founder. If I tell you something, you probably completely resonate because you've either been through it or you can understand how that would feel because your businesses are your babies. So I just wanted to meet other founders. Jason was like, I just want to meet guys to go play football with, whatever it was. And it sounded so simple. But we realized that none of the apps out there were helping people to actually meet people. And we actually went away on holiday that Christmas. We went to Bali. We were like, okay, let's go, switch our phones off. Like, maybe we'll come up with an idea, who knows? But if not, we also need to like celebrate. We need to get out of London. London's so hectic all the time. It's like, go, go, go. Let's get out and just spend time with us two and like really celebrate. And out there, I don't know if you've ever been, but Bali's got such this like nice community feel. Everyone's super friendly. There's loads of expats there. Everyone wants to chat. Everyone wants to connect. The run club culture, like the fitness culture, wellness is huge there. And it's so tight knit that everyone knows each other. And we'd be like sat in a cafe and we'd see like these run clubs running past. And we're like, that's so cool. How do you find out about that? But to find out about them was so difficult. So we kind of put like these two ideas together of, okay, we want to meet people. We're struggling to meet people. How do we do it? But then there's also these founders of these communities that are hosting these incredible events and communities, but there's nowhere to find them. So let's kind of put two and two together and build CLIQ. And at the beginning, we had the idea for like 3 features, very basic app, and it was all about just connecting people and meeting people. And now it's formed this fully fledged business that's got so many features. It basically helps community leaders to run their whole business through us. We work with loads of brands, we work with creators, loads of things that we didn't really think were necessary at the beginning. But again, it's that test and learn, like start small, build something small, test it with your audience, see who uses it, and then go from there.
Yeah, and I love the idea of like, so one of the challenges that I've found is because I completely come off social media like 2 years ago, maybe a year ago.
It must be even harder to find things.
It's really hard because all of these communities that were run clubs, I feel like I'm missing out on things because I'm not on social media, and it's a real trade-off to kind of feel like, do I still want to spend my time and energy in those environments online? But I know are like a net negative for me, like, and you know, mentally and all of that sort of thing. It's draining, hard enough running a business at the best of times, like if you're constantly doom scrolling as well, it can just be really exhausting. But then like on balance, am I also missing out on things that I should be going to, like as a founder, as a fitness person, you know, somebody that's interested in all of that stuff. So like having a place where you can go that's not on those social apps to go and find the things and connect with people, I think is really powerful. So tell me a bit about maybe the first kind of 6 months of CLIQ. So you'd come out of MyRev, you obviously have all of this knowledge, but mistakes that you made, things that went really well. Like how did that kind of accelerate the sort of start journey of CLIQ and getting going?
Oh, it was so much easier. You even think like when you want to start a business, you don't have any business experience. Like how do you register a business? What do you do? How do you tell HMRC what you're doing? When's the right point? All of this. But for us, because we'd done it before, we kind of knew how to, I don't know, fast track that first 6 months and get things done really quickly. We also had a bit of a network, which was quite nice. So because we're living in London and we made all these connections, we were going to people with the idea. So we created a pitch deck straight away, all the idea, the concept. Jason mapped out like what the app would look like, all the app screens. I was like designing the brand, and we go and speak to people that we really like looked up to within the industry and people that we've met along our journey and be like, we think we're going to build this. What do you think? And every single person was like, that is so needed. Like you have to do it. And I think that, I suppose, validated our idea a lot. So we knew that it was a good idea. Sometimes as founders, you can be like, I've got this business idea. Everyone's going to use it. It's going to be the best thing ever, but it might not resonate with a lot of people. So I do think you have to speak to people, obviously people that you trust that aren't going to go and like steal your ideas. So yeah, we just completely went for it. It was just me and Jason for the first few months, and then we brought on someone technical to help us develop the app. So it was just us 3, and it was very scrappy. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like the first early days of a business when you haven't launched is the scrappiest, but it's the best because you're playing around with different ideas, you're toying around with different things, you're like, you've got all these big plans, you don't really know how it's going to come into fruition until you have this product. And sometimes when you're like, before you're launching a business, sometimes you feel like there's nothing to do. It's a really weird period. Like lucky for us, we had the knowledge and we had a bit of capital behind us to take us through that point. But like, it's not achievable for everyone. And a lot of people do have to build the business whilst they've got something else going on full time.
And did you, so have you bootstrapped the first, I know obviously you've gone through investment now and we'll talk about that in a moment, but the first sort of 6 months or so getting it off the ground, did you use the money but so you were kind of putting everything back on the line?
Yeah, so it's a risk. Again, and people were like, why the hell are you risking your money again? Yeah. But for us, we just knew in our gut that this was going to be something.
So, you know, I know we kind of talked about it as a social network. And when you think about social networks, you think about Instagram, Facebook, all of those, TikTok, whatever it might be. Where do you start with kind of building a new social network? Because you look at the competition and you're like, they're so, light years ahead of where we are. Like, what's the first chunk that we need to carve off to make sure that we're making an impact? So how did you get from 0 to 1, I suppose?
Yeah, so with that, a lot of investors would say to us, like, how are you going to compete with Facebook? How are you going to compete with Instagram? And for us, we're not taking anything away from those other platforms. We want to carve a new road of social media. And people are always going to still use TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. But we want CLIQ to be the place where you go to meet people. And I suppose in those early days, understanding our audience was really important. So we spoke to so many community founders at the beginning, like building these relationships. I was going to all their events and I was just trying to meet them and build this relationship with them and understand what platforms they were using. A lot of the time it's so disjointed in the community space. They've got like WhatsApp, Slack or Discord for their chats. Then they've also got Eventbrite or Ticket Tailor or Luma for the tickets. They might have a Facebook group, they might have a white label platform. Then they're also trying to promote on Instagram, LinkedIn and TikTok. It's not sustainable. And also as a user, you don't really know where you're going. Now, you've got one thing on one platform, one thing on another. So we understood what they liked from these platforms, what they would want from a platform like CLIQ, and used that research to ultimately build the app. And now the app that you see today has literally been on community feedback, which is amazing because we got into the minds of our community and we're like, right, while we have the time, let's speak to as many people as possible and understand what we're building as opposed to just waiting. And then we also got this amazing waiting list when we launched because we've made relationships with these community founders at the beginning. So I was very much front facing. Jason was always like product, tech and building that with our developer. But I was like, I need to be out there as much as possible and making connections and speaking to people because that's so important.
Yeah. So how was that kind of co-founder dynamic been for you? So like most people when you say, and I guess there are a number of kind of lenses to look at this through. Most people say when you're going to start a company, a business of your partner, that you'd be a lunatic.
Yeah, maybe we are.
And so but how has that been both from like the impact that it's had on you as individuals and your relationship, but also the impact it's had on your kind of relationship as founders?
Yeah, it's a weird one because there is no switch off. And anyone can say to you like, oh, maybe you should have rules. Maybe it's no talk about business after 6 p.m, no business at dinner. When you're building something, it's very hard for it not to be in your mind and not to talk about it. But I think because we're both so passionate about what we're doing, it makes it so easy. We're both so aligned, like we've grown up together, so we've been together for so long. We're very different in terms of like personalities, and I think that's why we work. It's like yin and yang. We also have very different skill sets and want to focus on very different things. I think what we learned from the first business is we can't both do everything. In the first business, we're both trying to do everything, every meeting, every email, like we both do because we were learning and we didn't know what we wanted to do and we also didn't want to miss out on anything. Whereas now we can both be off for the day, have completely separate days as you would in any normal relationship, come together in the evening and talk about work. But it just so happens that that work is our business.
And how does it every partnership has disagreements. So like when you have a disagreement at work, does that bleed into your personal relationship and vice versa?
Yeah, you know what? We never really argue about work. The thing that we probably argue the most about, which we don't really argue that much anyway, is like not spending enough quality time together outside of work. Yeah. But we never really disagree on any work decisions. I don't know, we're both very like chill. Like if he wants to go and do something, I'm like, yeah, just do it. See if it works. Like if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out. And he's the same with me if I really want to do something. So I think we just both have this like balance and dynamic that we're happy to let each other make a decision. And also I really trust him now. So he was to go off for a day and come back and he does this.
Only just now.
Yeah, maybe only just now. And he comes back and he's like, oh, I've met the best person ever. I'd love to hire them. Like obviously I'm going to meet them first, but I trust that decision that he's made. And just because I know what he's like and I know how he's thinking.
So like, but has it made it kind of, I mean, I'm sure it has, but what are the challenges been around things like, hiring, for example, and fundraising? Because particularly investors are really kind of like, they're risk adverse, right? Like they want to know that their money is going to be safe and it's going to come back in 5 years' time. And, being in a partnership with your co-founder, like there is obviously a risk there through the eyes of some people, probably not for you because you know your relationship really well. But has that made it more challenging at any points of that journey for growth where you are now?
Yeah, there's definitely people that don't understand it. And I think sometimes people think just because they couldn't do it doesn't mean that it's going to work for us. And we have had investors that have had, I'd say, very interesting opinions on co-founder relationships. But we always say, like, we know each other so well and we trust each other so much that actually helps the business. Whereas people find co-founders like on the street. Like they've not even met this person before and they get matched online through this like program and now they're co-founders of a business. And both those people have completely different lives. For us, because we have the same life, the same home, it makes everything so much easier. I get that some people don't get it. And I do think that's because there's not as many, I suppose, couple founder role models. If you think about it, there's not really many you could think off the top of your head. Like the Canva founders of couple. Yeah. There's like Alex Hormozy and his wife, they're a couple. But there's not many people that are like waving the flag to showcase that it's okay. You've got like your profile of like male founders and female founders, but you never really have the couple.
No, you don't. So like, what advice would you give to like, because I'm sure, but like, as you say, starting a business is much easier than ever now. And I'm sure there are a bunch of people out there who might want to start a business with their best friend or with their partner or with their co-worker, whatever that might be. What advice would you have for those people to like, in the early days, kind of help separate, help set the boundaries, help to figure out who's responsible for what and make it a success rather than something where people start to get down that path and start to build resentment because things aren't going well?
Yeah, I do think you need to know someone for quite a decent amount of time and spend a lot of time with them before you start the business. Like you're just going on holiday together, like whatever it is, like you've got to spend so much time together to understand if you can work together, because work's a very different environment to a personal life. And yeah, just because you think you can go out on a weekend and go for a walk and then go to the pub with someone that you can start a business with them, just because they're a nice person you get along, it doesn't mean that it's going to work. I think especially in business, you've got to be like life aligned, life stage aligned as well. I think sometimes we hear these stories of people have co-founder relationships and the business gets really big and one of them gets a bit greedy and they want to take money off the table. Or even if someone wants to start a family, all of these things, like I think you need to have everything outlined before you start. And if you want to do something within the next 3 years or even 5 years, I think you've got to let that person know. I get that things change along the way and life does change, but I think the more that you could be honest with each other is really important.
Yeah, I think it kind of like you need to understand what their 5 years looks like, right? Because if let's just say you get 12 months into building CLIQ and one of you, obviously you're not going to, but one of you said, right, I'm moving to Australia now, it's clearly just not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be so aligned with that. And I suppose with me and Jason, we've always just wanted the same things in life. And I just think we're very lucky that our paths are exactly the same. We probably want kids at the same time, all these different things. Whereas sometimes in co-founder relationships, you don't get that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the CLIQ investment journey. So I know you've just raised a big round. And feel free to share how much or as little as you want. But like, what did that round look like? Who was it from? How did you attract those investors?
Yeah, so we raised our pre-seed round when we first launched. And that was angel investors. And we also did a crowdfund. So we did a crowdfund early on because we built this amazing community already of our users. And when we were raising, we were quite public about raising and had so many people contact us like, oh, I'd love to invest in you, but I don't have this amount of capital. How can I get involved? So a crowdfund for us was a natural progression. And that was amazing because now our users are like investors in the product.
And feeding back into it all of the time.
Exactly. And with that helped us build the foundations of the business, helped us build a bit of a team. So we were 4 people and just helped us to, really understand what we wanted. And then we just raised a bigger round. So we closed that just before Christmas. For us, this is all about growth and scale. So the first one was like build the foundation of the business, make it really sustainable, help to grow, but really like at this kind of level. With this investment, it's like, okay, let's skyrocket the business. I think you get to a point with tech companies, and I mentioned this at the beginning, that you do need that injection of capital to get to the next level. For us, there are quite a lot of big players in the space. And we know that a lot of people are trying to build in this space. Like we're seeing all the dating apps now are starting in real life stuff. And it's like, it's a hot topic. Everyone's talking about in real life. So we know there's going to be so many apps coming out the woodwork, and there's a few at the moment. So for us, we just want to have that injection capital so we can overtake them.
Not have those limitations in place where you're like, I've got to get to this next level to be able to unlock the next kind of.
Exactly. And it's so hard as a founder as well, because sometimes you just don't want to spend money.
Yeah.
Like, you've got this money coming in, but that money's going to have to go out at some point. And like cash flow is the hardest thing to manage within the business. Like, yeah, you can make loads of money, but if your outgoings are high, then you've kind of got to manage that. as well. So for us, the investment just gives us a really good runway to us to take risks. We haven't spent a penny on marketing, which is an incredible place to be because we've learned so much, but now we can take more risks. And if someone in our team says like, I really want to do this campaign, before we'd be like, no, sorry, you can't do it. You've literally got no money. Like, you've got to figure it out. Now it's like, okay, go and spend that money and see where it goes. And then we can test and learn in different ways.
I think that freedom to experiment as well just gives you so much more kind of to like, if you've only got one shot to make an idea work, like you're going to do a fairly safe idea, I think, and you're going to try something, but it's not got a huge amount of risk associated with it. But if you know that you've got 2 or 3 rolls of the dice, you're much more likely to be experimental in the way that you do things, I think, which is where growth happens. So, you know, again, for anybody kind of listening or watching, it's about to go on that maybe next level fundraising journey, what advice would you give them? Like, how do you figure out what size of round you want to go for? You know, what type of investor you want to work with? How do you think about whether you want that to be VC or private equity or whatever it might look like? What's the sort of decision-making framework that you went through to get to being like, this is what we need, this is who we want it from, and this is how we're going to go about it?
Yeah, I think in terms of how much you want to raise, for us, we really broke it down. So like, okay, we want to hire these roles. We want to have a buffer for marketing spend. And then you've got like tech and you've got all the other bits on there. How much does that cost a month if we wanted to do that? And then times that by at least a year. I think with investment and when you're raising, they want to see like a 12 to 14 month runway to know that their money is safe and you're not going to be raising again in another 3 months. I'd say start the conversations early. So transparency, our last round took us about 8 months to get over the line, which is a long time when you are also running a business. We dipped out of it a little bit. So we started having conversations in February, like announced the round, started speaking to all of the VCs, and we're just getting the same feedback of you're just a little bit too early for us. So within the summer period, we dipped out a little bit because we started getting really busy, like there was too much to do. So we didn't raise probably for about 2 months within there, but we hadn't made any traction anyway. So we're like, let's scrap it. And then at the end of summer, we started again. And this round was a mixture of funds and family offices and a few angels. So it's a very different ball game when you're in that kind of like sector. They speak very differently. They act very differently. And I think you've got to speak to as many people possible to understand that. So like what we did in the beginning of the year really set us up for that second period of trying to raise, because we had the conversation with the VCs. We knew what they were looking for. We knew what lingo they used. We knew what metrics they were looking for. Whereas in the first early days, it was like, okay, we've just launched a product. We'd have like not many users. We're second-time founders. Please go invest in us. And it's like they're investing in the dream and they're investing in the mission. Whereas with the second round, it was like, no, these are your metrics. This is what money you're making. This is potential. Want to see an exit in 5 years, however that looks. How are you going to get there? So it was way more process-driven and way more data-driven. I think you have to be prepared for that with your second round. And then with your third round, it's only going to get bigger and bigger because you have more metrics and you have more to prove them.
Yeah. And were you going back to the same group of investors you did the first round?
In a way, yeah. So we went back to them and was like, have you got any connections for us? Do you want to reinvest? Some of our investors did reinvest as well, which is amazing. But yeah, utilizing the connections that you already have to gain new connections, but then was also active, very profile on LinkedIn, connecting with new investors. I connect with like 200 a week. It was crazy. I'd just be sat there like,
and again, it's a full-time job, isn't it? You have to be really active on it. So do you prefer to, like, when you were going for this bigger round, which in many ways is kind of, I guess, your headline round, right? Like there's a lot of businesses that raise that kind of pre-seed round, you know, and they do okay. And then, but when you go and raise a 7-figure, I think something like that is a big kind of announcement of like, we're serious about this. So do you go to, at that point as somebody raising, do you prefer to have as many investors as possible so that you've got really diverse range of connections and experience and advisory and all of that type of thing? Or do you prefer to have like one big ticket fund or VC or kind of investor?
Yeah, so we ended up with one large ticket. So we had one large ticket from a family office, like a mid-sized check from a VC, and then I think 3 or 4 smaller angels. Whereas the first round was a lot of angels, and we obviously did the crowdfund as well. So I think we had like 15 angel investors invest, which is a lot. But for us, in those early days, we wanted connections and we wanted help. So we had 15 people that we could turn to and we could call up and be like, oh, I see you connect with this person. Can we get an intro? We want help with this. Whereas this round, we didn't want to have too many people on our cap table. It wasn't like out of preference. It kind of just happened like that. And yeah, we're very lucky that we had a family office invest.
Did you know much about family offices before this round? Because
Not
it's a very, very different world, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're also really hard to find. It was actually a connection of a connection that introduced us, and it just went from there. And it's crazy. Like, you could be knocking on so many doors, and we were knocking on every fund, every VC, everyone's door, being like, invest in us, and being shut down. And then all of a sudden you get connected to someone through someone that trusts that person, and they end up putting in a really big check. And sometimes you just don't know who you're going to meet. I think you have to be really open. I think it was November, early-ish, me and Jason sat down and were like, we can't go into 2026 still raising. We've been doing this since February. We've got some interest, but we don't have the money. Like, we can't keep doing this. And then we're like, okay, we just need to let it go. Let the universe like do its thing. Just like let it go and see what happens. And then a couple of weeks later, we had this connection.
The theme emerging here, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's just chill out sometimes, let it go, and things will happen if it's meant to be.
So anybody that's going through that stage, you know, speaking to investors, speaking to funds, speaking to family offices, what are the things that people should be looking out for when they start to receive offers of money, term sheets? Like, what would you say of a green flags and the red flags of going through that journey? And I know that you've had many.
Yeah, seen a lot of red flags. I think do your due diligence as a founder. A lot of the time you're in due diligence with the investors and they're going through every part of your business, but also do your research. So we actually had a few, I suppose, like shocks along the way where we put all our eggs into a certain basket because someone introduced us to someone and they sold us this dream of like, yeah, I know someone that's going to invest £500,000 into your business, blah, blah, blah. Sat down with this person on a weekly basis, went through every single part of our business. They had every single document possible. And it turned out it was a bit of a fraud.
Right. Okay.
We still don't really know what this person was looking to gain, but it's just like there are so many sharks out there that will take advantage of you. And also a lot of people are really nosy. So they want to know what you're doing within your business. So I do think like do your due diligence. Also have NDAs. Like now we're very strict on like if we're sharing information with people, they should have an NDA. Because if it was the other way around and we were looking into their investment firm, they'd send us an NDA. So I think just really being less naive. It's very difficult to not get really excited when someone's like, I'm going to give you loads of money.
Yeah, of course. So like when you're going through, so let's just to dive into that a bit deeper, do your due diligence. Like what does that mean? So for somebody that's reading through, you know, a prospective term sheet from VC, that they don't know, they haven't heard before, they were connected through somebody else. What are the things that they should do due diligence on? What would you be looking as a founder to try and understand?
Yeah, just as much research as you can as possible. With this instance, it was someone that had them as a client, but we had the name of this client. We couldn't find them anywhere. He gave us this whole spiel of who this client was, and he was like an ex-founder of this company, blah, blah, blah. We couldn't really find anything. There was a few like red flags along the way, but then it's like not everyone has social media as well, which can be quite tricky to find a lot about the person. I think you know deep down in your gut if something isn't right. The first time I met that person, I'm a very good judge of character. And in my gut, I was like, I don't think there's something right here. Like, I can just tell. But as a founder, like, you go along with it sometimes and you just don't know where opportunities are going to come.
You want it to be real, right? At that point of your journey where you're so excited about the next stage, someone's coming to you with a big pot of money, you want it to be real. So I guess things like speaking to other companies that they've invested into, speaking to other founders that they've worked with, speaking to other funds maybe they work alongside to really try and get a proper picture of who they are as an individual. And so just to talk about the red flags a bit more about sort of women's safety when you're going through a fundraising round. And I think it's something that I've not heard anybody else speak about before, but you mentioned that you'd had a couple of instances where people were maybe a bit inappropriate. So feel free to share like as much or as little as you want. But I do think it's something that other founders that are going through that journey, particularly women at an earlier stage, perhaps are slightly more naive to it because they haven't got through that process before. What should they watch out for?
Yeah, so there are a lot of people who want to take advantage of people when it comes to investment. And then I think you put yourself in the category if you're a female founder and you're going to meet a lot of the investors. I think it's 90% of investors are probably men. There's obviously a lot of amazing investors out there, but there are a lot of horror stories. I've had it before. So I would always do the reach out on LinkedIn just because what we found between me and Jason, I'd get the most open rates, the more conversations. So I would do all the initial outreach. And I'd have like the wildest things. Like someone was like, oh yeah, send me your pitch deck, send it over. Came back, he was like, oh, I'm not interested, but are you single? And I was like, this isn't really the place to ask that. And no, I'm not. Also, if you knew anything about my business, you know that I run it with my partner. So they clearly hadn't looked. I've had a lot of instances where it's like, oh yeah, meet me at this hotel bar, 6 p.m. and we'll have a conversation. I always bring Jason. because I'm like, you don't want to go to a hotel bar at 6 p.m. on your own as a female founder. Like, also, why are we meeting in a hotel bar? Why are we not meeting in a coffee shop at 3 p.m.? Why does it need to be after hours?
It's quite obvious, isn't it,
Exactly.
what people are trying to do in that situation?
Exactly. And you can always, I think, tell with the conversation of how it's going. And lucky I do have Jason to fall back on. So we had this guy once that was like being a bit like creepy with me on message. I could just tell. And he was like, let's go on a call, let's go on a call. Got on a call and I invited Jason, but I didn't tell him. He like absolutely froze. He was like, I didn't think you'd be here. And Jason was like, well, I'm the co-founder of this business. If you want to invest in it, then like I should be here too. And this guy clearly didn't want to talk about the business because he had no questions, prep, no nothing. He was asking us the most bonkers, like random stuff. And you could tell he was just there to have a conversation with me, which is so strange. And I do think as a female founder raising, you do have to be really cautious of who you're going out and meeting, because you never know. And I've heard stories of, people being like having these meetings with someone and they're like, oh, do you want to carry this on further? Let's go to a bar. Like, I've got a hotel room down the road, all of these things. And I just think like, it's just awful.
I think there's a lot of kind of like in the investment space, sort of little private members clubs. You just have to be super careful, I think, going somewhere that you're unfamiliar with a person that you don't know, who may or may not be legitimate, but just, I think, be a bit cautious.
Yeah, exactly. And anyone can say on their LinkedIn they're an investor. Like, there's no due diligence on that. They can have investor in their bio and they can pretend that they're an investor, and that's very easy to do. And I do think it's that trust element of like speaking to other people, speaking to people they're connected with. I have it sometimes where a female founder will reach out to me like, I've got a meeting with this person. Have you met with him before? If I've had a bad experience, obviously I'm going to tell that person because I think that's really important. But also I'm really passionate about like championing the good people out there as well.
Amazing. So what are the biggest kind of learnings, I guess, so far? Like, you're a few years into CLIQ now, really starting to gather pace. What are the biggest kind of things that you've learned in this business so far that you didn't learn in your first business?
Oh, I think one is that people are everything. It's the people that you surround yourself with, the investors that you have, who you have on your board, your team, but also the people around you. Like, I'm really passionate about supportive networks, and now I have a really supportive network of female founders, which is really important to me. Team is a big one. So finding people that are better at the job than you. Like, recently we made probably 2 big hires that were a bit of a risk for us and kind of taken away a lot of the work that myself and Jason were doing ourselves. But you don't want to be the smartest people in the room, and those people can come in and teach you something. So I think that's really important. Work-life balance, in a way, I've realized is really important. Even though it's so hard and we do work incredibly hard, I'm really like set on having me time.
And you do take breaks, don't you? I've seen on your posts on LinkedIn that you take kind of trips to Australia and
you
Bali.
have to. Like, when the investment happened, we got that signed off on the Friday before Christmas, which is crazy because no one does anything that day. We managed to get a whole round signed off somehow. We booked a flight to Australia because if we were back in the UK on the 1st of January and we were back running the business, we wouldn't have time to celebrate. Yeah. And like, we've just had this amazing milestone. Why not go and enjoy that? And also, the beginning of January, no one's really doing anything anyway, so it's a perfect time for us to go away. But I think you need to take yourself out of the business, and that's how I've found works best for me and Jason to have like our time is go for dinner, go for brunch, go for a walk, go to a class together, whatever it is. Like, take yourself out of the home environment. So I'm really passionate about building a bit more of a work-life balance, which is still in progress. And what else have I learned? God, so many things. It's interesting with CLIQ now, we've got to a bigger stage than we ever were with the first business. And that got quiet.
And you're having all of these challenges around, like you just mentioned, team growth. So I know that one of the people that you mentioned that you've hired recently is a technical leader. Yes. So how do you go about, like, you and Jason are, and I know Jason was doing the technical and product stuff, but is not really a kind of technical and product person. Like, how do you hire those people when you've never done those roles? Because as far as I know, I don't think you had a sort of full-time, you'd never been a kind of manager or a leader or anything like that before you started your businesses, purely an entrepreneur. So how do you know who you're looking for, how to hire? How do you measure those people? How do you then, I guess, set the sort of outcomes that help you to determine whether they're good or bad hires?
Yeah, I think with the technical one, that was probably one of the hardest choices because, neither me and Jason are technical. I don't know how we've built a tech business and got to where we are 2 tech businesses without being technical. I think you just learn so much along the way and you learn those skills. But having someone in the business that is our technical lead, he's only been with us 2 weeks, but it's completely transformed the business. Like, you can look at a CV and be like, these are all the things that we want. This is where they've been before. But also they've got to be a really good fit for your team and really good fit culturally. For us, our hire understands the business. So when we first started CLIQ, we had someone technical come in and they built the bare bones in the first part of the business, they didn't really understand what CLIQ was. They didn't understand the mission. They didn't really understand any part of the business. They also kind of thought it was their business. There was like this weird mismatch because it was only 3 of us as well. It's quite a tight-knit group. And that relationship didn't end up working because he wasn't a cultural fit. Yeah, he was a great developer, but wasn't a cultural fit. Whereas now me and Jason are very strict on it has to be the cultural fit. They have to come into the team and they have to mold really well with everyone. Even for a technical person, like they run on a weekend, all of that kind of stuff. Like they have hobbies, they understand communities, they've been to community events before. Like Ella and her team, she started her own community. Like I've got my own community of female founders. Like everyone within the team understands what it takes to build a community. They understand the mission and they can resonate with it some way. Yeah, you can be amazing at your job, but if you don't understand what the business is doing and don't understand that growth trajectory and don't also understand that it's not just product, that it's also tech, that it's also marketing, that it's also all these other things that make a really good business, then you're not going to go anywhere.
No, you're just indexing on skills alone and that's just not enough. So we're getting towards the end. I could sit here and talk to you for another hour or two easily. There's so many questions I would love to have got to, but we haven't. But we've got 3 closing questions that we go through, the same for every guest. The first is, who's inspired you the most on your journey? It can't be Jason.
Okay.
But also kind of like, not the obvious ones like friends and family. So who's inspired you most in your life apart from the sort of closest relationships that you've got?
So I'm really big on learning from other female founders and seeing how other female founders have done it. So I love kind of like those influencer founders, so like Grace Beverly, Chrissy Chella, like Emma Greed, all of those people and learning from those. I feel like my inspiration comes from listening to podcasts quite a lot and understanding that all of those people didn't come from money or experience. A lot of them did come from hard work and determination. And I think that really inspires me.
Amazing. And I love that answer because I do think that, in life in general, people are not coming to save you. You have to figure it out for yourself. And going back to what I was saying earlier on about kind of getting in the room with the right people, that's really where it all starts, isn't it? Going out and asking and following people. I'm sure you've reached out to all of those ladies at some point to try and get advice. So yeah, I love that answer. Second is, what's something about your own health and wellness? And I guess I probably know the answer to this, but that you think is really important.
There's so many things. I recently got an Oura ring, which I do feel like has changed my life. Sleep is really, I'd say, can transform you as a founder. I was always with the first business under the mindset of like, you don't need sleep, sleep when you're dead, whatever that saying is. But now I'm like, it actually does make a difference. If you're not well rested, if you're not like eating healthy, then you're not going to be the best founder. But I think sometimes there is this pressure as a founder that you need to be doing everything. So you need to be going to the gym, you need to be doing 10,000 steps a day, you need to be eating healthy, getting your sleep, but also running the business and seeing all your friends and all of that. And it just doesn't work. I think something's got to give. He won't mind me saying this, but about 6 months into CLIQ, Jason ended up having a stroke. So 30 years old, ended up having a stroke from stress because he was burning the candle at both ends. And that was a massive wake-up call for both of us to be like, no, slow down. Like our health is so important. And now we're really strict on having time for ourselves. And also like, every week can be so different. Like this week I've got 4 podcasts, which is amazing, but it means I might not get as much work done. Whereas next week I've not really got any podcasts or social things. I can sit down and get my work done. You'll have some weeks where you can go out with your friends at the weekend. You'll have some weeks where you need to work. Like everything can balance itself out and you don't need to be doing everything all at once, which myself and Jason was really doing at one point and obviously took a toll on his health. Like very lucky that he is young and he bounced back from that really, really easily.
But still, it's like a big wake-up call.
Huge wake-up call to be like, we need to slow down.
I think it's like you have to kind of, I guess, get your head around the fact that there are seasons of life. There are going to be parts of your journey that are full on, like the fundraising part. But then you do have to build in those parts where you can have a few months where you're not 100% all of the time. And maybe you go to Australia for a month or whatever it might be for that person and that individual. But you can't operate at that level all the time. Something's got to give at some point.
And also I think it's about being kind to yourself. Like a lot of the time we're just so hard on ourselves. And I'm like, I get to the end of the day and I've been to the gym and I'd be like beating myself up about it. But I'm like, if I went to the gym now, I'm probably not going to do the best workout and I'm going to be even more tired tomorrow. So why not just wake up tomorrow and start fresh? And like every day is a new start and start fresh. Like you don't have to see it as just because you haven't done something today doesn't mean it can't get done tomorrow.
Final question is, who would you like me to interview? After going through this podcast, who do you think would be a good person to come on next?
Oh, I was thinking about this and I was trying to think of some amazing female founders that I know, and I know so many, but there is these 2 founders that are building an app called Phase. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
No, but it's amazing. So it's for women, but what it does is it maps your productivity based on your cycle. So cycle syncing, cycle tracking. So it does that, but then it maps what you should be doing each day based on that. I think that's something that's so interesting. Like there's so many productivity apps out there and all these different things, but a lot of them aren't built for women because we typically don't have the same week every single week for hormones. So yeah, she's called Maggie, one of the co-founders.
Amazing.
She's building this amazing app.
I'm going to have to get an intro from you. So what's next for CLIQ? Where can people find it? How do people engage with it? How do people get into that world?
Yeah, next for CLIQ, taking over the world, literally. Yeah, we've just launched in Australia. We're also finding quite a lot of hotspots around the world are popping off. So like Dubai, Milan, Barcelona, which is really cool. So yeah, international expansion, it's on the cards for this year. And yeah, where to find us, we are Find Your CLIQ on Instagram. You can download the app on App Store and Google Play Store. And then my socials, just Nicola Gunby.
Amazing. Thank you so much.